and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Melissa, but if you are one of my curious subscribers and you've been following along, then you already know that you can call me Missy. Today's video comes to you with some problems. I started filming and I lost quite a lot of footage. So the first half of this video is kind of what I was able to salvage and piece together. And the second half is fairly complete. Before we commence with the footage that I have, I'm just going to give you a brief explanation of what the plan is here. I have an idea. And the idea was actually hatched when I was watching another YouTuber's videos. She was learning crochet for the first time. It's prickly alpaca, in case you're wondering. And as part of her video, she was doing some top stitching crochet stuff. And for whatever reason, that set off a light bulb in my skull that told me that this would be possible. I don't know anything about crochet at this point, and honestly, I'm not sure why I thought that this made this whole idea possible, but I really did. So I'm glad I was right. I went ahead and bought myself a book about how to crochet from Michaels and also some crochet hooks, and I started learning how to crochet. This was the first thing that I ever crocheted. As you can see, it is wonky. It is also full of different kinds of stitches, and it's currently serving as just a basic dish towel. After this, I made a few granny squares and I fashioned them into fingerless gloves and gave them to my kids. I think they lost them. I don't know where they are, or I would show you. So all this to say, I'm really new to crocheting, but I really wanted to make this. Sort of the inspiration for this was that I was listening to the Lock Tomb series by Tamsin Weir, and if you know, then you know.
This explanation is insufficient, and I think the best 3-word summary for this series is as follows: Sapphic space necromancers. Happy Pride! By the way, this video should be coming out at the end of June, so sorry it's late.
But it had me thinking about different kind of like necromancer aesthetics. And I was thinking it would be really cool to do something of like a dark academia sort of necromancer look. And now I need to make a sweater. I have 2 thrifted sweaters that are going to be my guinea pigs for this whole concept. The first one doesn't fit me very well, and so it's kind of the trial run sweater. And then the second sweater also doesn't fit me the way I would like, but I think that I can get it to fit me the way I like, and we'll get into that as the video progresses. So let's get into it.
Exhibit A and sweater number 1 is this pale yellow sweater with bishop sleeves, and I have drawn on it with this green chalk a kind of ribcagey shape. We will see later that I should have looked at a reference for this ribcage, but I didn't, and so we're looking at what we're looking at. After drawing the chalk outline, I outlined it with the top stitches that I mentioned earlier, and then just filled it in. I noticed as I was learning some crochet that the crochet stitches come in different lengths. So I kind of just chose the length that I thought would be best. And if it didn't work, I just undid it and redid it. The yarn that I'm using is a 100% cotton yarn that I got at the thrift store. And it is this adorable palest of pale baby blues. I feel like the juxtaposition between the pastel colors of both the sweater and the crochet that I've added is just so fun, in contrast to the concept of this is a ribcage. I will now address the fact that you can definitely hear the sounds of my family playing in the background. Yes, my little people live with me. Yes, they are loud. Sometimes you can hear them in my videos. But if I wait till they are quiet, I will never get these videos out. So hopefully you'll be patient with me, as my videos tend to be very flawed. At this point in the video, you will be hearing me recording a voiceover over footage of me. I lost the audio that goes with this footage somehow. I'm pretty sure I point out how stylized this ribcage is. It's a bit too wide, but the process of doing this told me how I needed to do the crochet stitches so that it would work. Basically going back and forth, ribcage, rib bone to rib bone. Also, the chalk was constantly disappearing on me, and one side of the ribcage is not the same size as the other side. I like to think that this is less noticeable when I am wearing the sweater, and maybe the wonky freehand quality of the sweater has a bit of a nice playfulness that goes with the color palette. But I do have to wonder if it actually reads as a rib cage rather than some random weird pattern that's been put on top of a sweater. Whatever one may conclude, this sweater did serve its purpose in teaching me a lot about the process of doing this. And in that sense, it is a success. I mentioned at the beginning of this video that I don't like the fit of this sweater. This is how it fits naturally, and this is how I want it to fit. As you can see, I want it cropped. I just tend to prefer what this silhouette looks like on my body. So the next question, how do I crop it? I could just cut it apart and then sew the hem back on, and that's kind of what I did. I unpicked and unraveled the sweater. I started going from the bottom to the top on one side, but it did not unravel easily that way. So on the other side of the sweater, I unpicked and unraveled it from the topmost portion of where I wanted it to be, and then unraveled it down to just above the hem. I then very carefully, loop by loop, reconnected the top of the sweater to the ribbed hem of the sweater. At first, I could easily pick out where I had done this, but after putting it on and stretching it out and putting it through the wash, I can't even figure out where that connection point was most of the time. I think a couple of times I missed the pattern of the way the needle was meant to weave in and out of the loops. And in those places, there's a visible scar as to where I reconnected the sweater to itself. As you can imagine, this was a time-consuming process, but I really like the result of how it turned out. A hemline would have been much more visible and bulky. I would have had to kind of sew and then had to join seam pieces, and this way it's practically seamless. When the reassembly of the sweater was complete and successful, I was really happy to be done and excited by how it turned out. Because I learned from my previous mistakes, I used a reference this time to draw out a template of a rib cage. I then cut out my template on a fold so that I had this beautifully symmetrical rib cage. I also added a bit of spinal column because I think it would look nice. Now, if you look around the collar of the sweater, you'll notice a bleach stain. Whatever this yarn is dyed with, it bleaches a reddish color, which is going to be quite nice with the theme of this sweater. And this is where I discovered that bleach actually expires. I have a bottle of bleach, which I had not used in a long time because bleach is really harsh on clothing. So I had not realized that the bleach had expired. So I tried spraying bleach on this a few times and was really confused why it wouldn't work before I finally looked it up. I don't have footage of the successful bleach spray, but it ended up working out. Okay, I have started working on this sweater. As you can see, I'm doing really small loops, which I'm not sure if that's the move, but that's kind of what we're doing. I am using this tapestry wool, which I bought at a thrift store. I think it was like $1 for 3 skeins that were in a pack. So I thought that this color wool was really nice, but I know that tapestry wool has a tendency to be a lot more coarse and more scratchy, just based on what I was reading about it online. So hopefully it's not going to make it too scratchy in the end. What you do get on the other side of this is just this single line of stitches. So hopefully it won't get too scratchy because it's just going to be an outline on the inside. I kind of think that I want to do arm bones as well down the arms, but we'll see how this project continues. Today is a chilly, rainy spring day, so it's a great time to be just sitting and working on this stuff. Learning to crochet has been really, really pleasant. It's such a comfy, cozy little practice. You can sit there with a podcast or with a record playing. I liked to throw it in a bag so that I could take it on the go and just work wherever I'm at. Every time I would just get a moment to get working on it. Full disclosure on the timeline, I did start it while it was still cold outside, towards kind of the end of the winter and the beginning of the spring. So it was chilly for parts of the project, but by the time I finished it, spring was wrapping up and it was turning into full-blown summer. I'm trying to make it as symmetrical as I can, but like some of like the divotness is difficult to replicate on both sides, but I think I did a decent job. So I'm going to finish off the top of this somehow and then work on like the ribs portion. I'm not entirely sure how that's gonna work because maybe I should have done the ribs and the whole outline kind of all together, but here we are. So let's just keep going, I guess. Honestly, even after having done this once, I still don't really know what I'm doing because I'm just kind of making it up as I go. You know, we just keep going, and my whole thing is I just get going and then hope for the best. And sometimes it turns out, I feel like most of the time even, it kind of works out. But yeah, this is brand new. So there's even more probability, I guess, of having it go all wrong. There we go. That's looking good. And you can see it still has all of its stretch because I made them kind of loose-ish. If you saw my last video in which I made a cowboy guinea pig outfit, I told you that I do wear this outfit. I wear the pieces separately with other things in my closet, and here is a little piece of proof that that's true. Checking in with a little sweater progress report here. This is what we're looking at. The outline, I feel like always takes forever, but it's getting there. Part of it is that you have to just be really careful about where the needle goes in, because sometimes even if you're just like a stitch off,
it makes it look kind of wonky. And I'm not going to say that there are no wonky spots, but it's coming together quite nicely. Much better, I feel, than my first attempt at this project thing. Although the colors are very different vibe. I'm still on the fence as to whether I want to have arm bones on here, or to arm bone or not to arm bone. Either way, I still need to finish doing all of the outline on the rib cage portion. We're gonna need to do a little backbone that, you know, peeks out, spine, that's the word. And then we'll see about the arms.
At this point in the project, I was getting really tired of making outlines of bones. Even on the yellow sweater, this was definitely the most time-consuming part of the project. And in fact, when I was halfway done outlining the rib cage on the yellow sweater, I was seriously considering only doing half the rib cage and then doing like florals on the other half. And the only thing that stopped me was that I have no idea how to crochet florals. But it was really rewarding when filling in the outlines actually went pretty quickly. And I also really enjoyed that on this sweater, the rib cage was looking a lot nicer than the yellow sweater's rib cage looked. So that was really motivating. It's amazing how motivating it is when you're working on a project and it's coming out just the way you hoped.
All right, here we are. I have the hard part done of this sweater. Ta-da! What I need to do is finish off just this portion, and then I can start filling in all of the rib cage with the crochet elements. So that's our next steps. That's what we've got going on. Let's get to it.
This was, as I said, the most exciting part. In order to tie off loose ends, I tied off some of the loose ends to my ball of yarn so that I could continue it and actually use it in the crochet portion. I did still end up with loose ends that I had to tuck into the crochet part, and I did end up doing that at the very end. But I thought it was pretty clever tying it into the leftovers from the outline portion. At this point, I couldn't really remember what pattern of crochet I used to fill in the sternum on the other one. I noticed that there was a bit of a swirl on it, and this time I think I just went back and forth, up and down. As I said, I'm new to this, and I don't know if there's a term for what I'm doing here, but because I didn't really have any instruction on how to do this, I was just kind of free-forming it. It was a little like using yarn to color in a picture. And honestly, that's what drew me to crochet in the first place. It seemed like people who knew what they were doing were able to just kind of figure out how to make the crochet do what they wanted it to do. Having learned at least the first thing about crochet, I'm realizing that that's a little bit of a misconception, but it seemed to work out okay for this particular style or project or whatever you want to call it. If you look closely, you can see that my strategy here was to go over one rib, and then at the top of the rib, I would move into the next rib kind of towards the end, and then work partially around one end and then loop it around and then go back up towards the sternum and then move the crochet up the sternum and then continue on to the next rib. I don't know that that explanation makes any sense from an auditory standpoint, but hopefully if you're able to see the visual, then it makes sense. What my yellow sweater did not prepare me for was doing the spinal column portion of the sweater. One, because the yellow sweater did not have a spinal column portion, but also it didn't really have any pieces that were quite as wide or covered as much of the sweater as this piece does. And unfortunately, I didn't get any footage of me problem solving that, but it ended up working out. It's okay. I don't really know all the terms for what I did, and I feel like I'm a little bit shaky on even the terms for the different stitch lengths, right? Because you've got the single crochet and then the half double and then a double and a triple. I don't know. It's all just crochet to me.
Hey, so the crochet part of this project is done, which I was thinking that'll be the project done. But right now I'm thinking I need arm bones. I know I've been talking about maybe arm bones, but I need arm bones. But I'm not going to crochet the arm bones because, again, this like tapestry wool is a little scratchy, and I feel like it'll just be worse on my arms because most of my body will be covered with clothing when I wear this. So I think bleach. We're gonna do bleach arm bones, so I need to make some stencil. That's what it's called. I need to make a stencil of arm bones for the sleeve. So here I go.
For the stencil, I started out with some white paper and I decided whereabouts I wanted the arm bones to be, which told me about how long I wanted them to be. I sketched in some rough shapes and then refined them as I went. This is all done in pencil so that I can erase it if need be. But I rarely need to erase the roughed in sketch lines because I can just draw over them darker. When I like my shapes, I went ahead and cut them all out of the white paper. I used this plastic stencil in a previous project and there was space on the edge, so I thought I could just cut this stencil out of this plastic. So I traced on my arm bones, and then I used an X-Acto knife to cut out the shape of those arm bones. I used this ruler to help keep my stencil down close to the sweater, but I also taped it in place. And when I realized I needed to rinse out the bleach, I decided to put the rest of the sweater in a plastic bag, so I didn't get the wool wet.
One more thing before we go into the reveal. I made this mask. This mask was going to be its own video, but so much of the footage was lost that I am not able to make its own video. I am going to give you just a brief explanation of how I made it right here, and then we'll be on to that reveal. So I've been holding on to these little relief sculptures that I made, but this is monster clay and I have another dumb idea and I need the monster clay. So I'm destroying them. They've been sitting like this for months and months, but it's time to say goodbye.
The artist then destroys her creation in order to facilitate more creating. We were unable to obtain a video record of the artist's process. Here, however, we have it documented in photos. The artist cuts out this template and tries it on. She will ignore the appearance of this template and forge ahead. The template is transferred to the metal using Sharpie. The artist is now ready to utilize the reclaimed monster clay. She rolls it out into a slab. Now the work of pounding on the metal begins. The artist attempts to use a bowl to shape the metal. This is ineffective, and the mask comes out of the bowl. The mask is then cut out using a hand saw. The artist tries on the mask and is disappointed. Starting over, the artist makes adjustments to her process and also to her design. The rejected bowl is made to watch. The artist has learned from her first attempt and finds herself pleased with the shaping. At this point, we find some video record of this process. First, the artist uses metal files to soften up the edges of the mask. This will help to prevent the artist from being cut while wearing the mask. The metal, however, is thin, and the artist does not believe that filing is fully adequate. So, she uses pliers to fold over the metal. This sort of work is unfamiliar to the artist, and she wonders whether it would have been wise to have folded the edges of the mask before the shaping process. Particularly around the teeth, some shape will be lost. And then a small hammer and anvil are used to hammer down the edges, creating a rounded perimeter.
Oh, wow. All right. That's that. I really think this sweater turned out really cool. Unfortunately, it is the beginning of summer. So unfortunately, this is not going to be worn for a few months, but it will be immaculate come autumn. Oh, yeah, it is. It's warm. It's warm. I'm taking it off. Oh, gosh. Anyways, I am super actually surprised at how well this turned out, and also very stoked. Like I said, I'm just gonna be wearing it so much this autumn. I love how the length turned out, and I think that the little arm bone detail on the sleeve is kind of subtle, but I think it'll be really nice still. And I feel like it helps to complete the whole thing. Yeah, I love how the crochet kind of looks a little bit lacy. I like the texture of it. I just think it's really cool, so I'm really excited to be able to wear it when it cools off, which won't be for quite a while, unfortunately. But the vibes are vibing. I'm obviously pretty stoked about this. Thank you so much for watching to the end of that video. If you liked anything about that video, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you would like to see more of the shenanigans that I get up to, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that we can see each other in the next video, and it'll be wonderful and it'll be amazing. And until then, mwah, mwah, mwah. And I'll see you then, I guess. Bye.